Good evening, everyone, and we're back to continue on our book of Nahum. As we started last week, yesterday, we are given a very awesome imagery of God, something which we seldom think much about because we've always been thinking that God is nice, God is good, and yet when we read chapter 1 of Nahum in verse 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 gives us an awesome imagery that God can strike and punish and avenge and can get angry and describes certain people as his adversary or calls them his enemies. And although he is slow to anger and great in power, when those who are his enemies do not repent, he will demonstrate that anger and effect the punishment. Now, that is the picture that we have gotten in chapter 1 of Nahum yesterday. When we get to verse 7, we get a contrasting picture. The contrasting picture is that this is said not to his enemies, not to his adversaries, and if, in effect, we can safely say that the first portion here is with regards to Nineveh. And Nineveh, as a representation of the Assyrian Empire at this time, is considered an adversary or an enemy of God. And God is saying that he will effect that judgment if they don't do anything about it. And then the message of Nahum takes a turn in verse 7. And in verse 7, it says that Jehovah is good. Right? That is Jehovah. He is Tov. And we will break this down, right? Jehovah is Tov. He is a stronghold in the day of trouble. And he knows those who trust in him. And if you break this down, you'd find that the word stronghold here essentially means a place of protection. And in the old days, it's called a fort. And so if you run into a fort and you have a place that you are protected from, and it is with regards to the day of trouble. The word trouble here gives us a picture of being in a tight spot. And thereby we are talking about a tribulation or a persecution. And what else can we say? It is a time of distress. That you feel that you're pressed together. That's the word trouble. And then the text actually tells us that God, he would be God here, right? He knows those who trust in him. Now, this is what needs to be explained. The word trust here literally means the one who, let me just write it out here. The ones who run to God for protection. That would be the imagery, because God is seen as a stronghold, right? He is a fort. He will defend those who run into that fort. And so this is the meaning of the English word translated as trust. It's actually chadsa. And this word doesn't mean trust as in belief or trustworthiness. This would be the one who hopes in God. The one who will, well, I guess you could say that you can put your life in God. And so you run to him for protection. And that would be the meaning of this word trust. Now, one of the challenges we have in reading the English Bible is that many of these words that the translators use, like trust here, trouble, stronghold, does not properly convey the Hebrew meaning. And that's why we spent a little bit more time trying to break down some of these words. Verse 8, it says, but with an overflowing flood, he will make an utter end of its place. Darkness will pursue his enemies. So let's break this down again. Verse 8 says, with an overflowing flood. The idea here is like a downpour. Now, in the place like, say in Israel, when it rains, it really pours. It becomes a flood. Right? It becomes a flood and it's so overflowing, it's like it's going to flood everything. That is the picture. So in this particular chapter of Nahum, the description of God is given in very vivid imagery. God is depicting that he will bring about a downpour that will flood everything. And then he says he will make an utter end of its place. Now the word place here is makom. Makom would be the specific place. The specific place of the enemies. So it's not just any place, it's a specific place of his enemies. And here you would see an A and a B. All right. You would also find this. He will make an utter end. And the word utter end here is about the, well, I guess you could say that it's the completion. It's a completion towards a destruction. And then the next phrase here, it says that, and darkness will pursue his enemies. And darkness here literally means, and you would see that darkness in the Hebrew is representative of God's presence. God's presence is always depicted in a dark cloud, like on Mount Sinai. When the people saw God, they didn't see an image of God. They heard thunder, lightning, flashes, and thick, dark clouds. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, and darkness was over the surface of the waters. And that depicts the presence of God. So he will make an utter end of its place. You see here, and darkness will pursue his enemies. The word pursue is to chase after. To chase after. And to chase after his enemies is to bring the enemies to an end. And so here is a definite action by God to the end of the enemies, or those called enemies of God. You see that? And so that is the picture of verse 8. Now let's look at verse 9. It says, what do you conspire against the Lord? He will make an utter end of it. Affliction will not rise up a second time. Verse 9 is a question. What? And the Hebrew is ma. Ma. What do you think you're going to do? Right? And it says, what do you conspire? And I think the word conspire here is, what do you plan against God? You know, What do you have in mind? What do you have in mind against Jehovah? Now, if you know Jehovah, you won't even begin thinking of this. And so the Assyrians appears not to know Jehovah in a personal manner. And so the question is, what do they have in mind that they are trying to figure out what to do against God? And it says here in verse 9 that God, he will make an utter end of it. Now you notice this word utter end is right here. All right? Right here. Same word. Utter end means to bring to a destruction. And then it says affliction. Affliction is distress, trouble. Trouble, distress. Same word here is the same word here. Day of trouble, affliction. And so one of the biggest challenges when reading the English Bible is that you find that because the translators are keeping a close commitment to good English style of writing, so that when you read the Bible, it reads like a very good English book. But in the Hebrew, there is no such English style that the same word doesn't have to appear a different choice of words, like using a thesaurus. And so when it's trouble. Affliction is also trouble. And in Hebrew, you'd see that it's the same word. And so it says here, it would not rise a second time. And so it says here, rise up means to take place again. And so you find that this is another A and B, that destruction is sure. Destruction is sure. That this day of trouble, meaning the Assyrians will not get another shot at Israel. They already took the first shot at Israel, right? The northern kingdom. And so later on, at the time of Hezekiah, they came and they tried to take the southern kingdom, but they failed. Because in the second time, if you read further down in 2 Kings, you find that God destroyed the Assyrians. The angel of the Lord was sent by God, and in one night, hundreds of thousands of Syrian soldiers were killed. And so this is what it means, that while Israel, or then Judah, is in affliction, in distress, in a tight spot where they are seeing virtually certain destruction, God defended them and the Assyrians were destroyed. Verse 10. For while tangled like thorns, while drunken like drunkards, they shall be devoured like stubble fully dried. This is already also another imagery. It says, while tangled like thorns. And the word thorns here, and these really will be like hooks. And so thorns are really like hooks. And the hooks are tangled. And the word tangled here is to interweave. Now, this gives you a picture of entanglement, right? Entwined together. They are, it's like thorns, and they are just hooked up and crisscrossed, like weaving, right? Like weaving. The thorns are entangled. It means that they can't do anything about it. They're stuck, right? They are stuck. And then it says, while drunken like drunkards. And basically here is, it gives them a picture of not able to do any more, right? You get an A and a B here. And then the third part here is that they shall be eaten. And this idea here is caused to be eaten. And the picture here is stubble. And the word stubble here is chaff, like chaff, that is completely dried. Now, completely dried would mean that they are fully dried, totally and completely dried up. Now, when it's completely dried up, it will just break apart very easily, and that would be the third. So we have an A, B, C here. And why is there an A, B, C? And what is it talking about? It says that when the time comes, they can do nothing. They can do nothing. That's the picture that we have in this particular in this particular verse, verses 9 and 10. Now, what you're gonna see is that this entire piece, maybe we'll just hold on to this, and then we'll finish verse 11 onwards, and then I will come back to explain what the prophecy is all about. Verse 11. It says, from you comes forth who plots evil against the Lord Jehovah, a wicked counselor. Now, all of these are very, how should you say, they are words that describes their leader, right? And it's describing someone who will plot evil. And the idea of evil here is Ra, against God, and he is called one who is wickedness or counsels wickedness. I think that would be a better explanation. Who counsels wickedness. Who counsels wickedness literally means he has worthless counsel. That's what it means. Counsel wickedness means, this word wickedness doesn't mean evil in the sense, it just means that there is nothing good that comes out of the advice. The worthless counsel will bring to destruction or ruin. And that would be the picture of verse 4. And so there is one who actually plots. Now, the word plots is, it means literally the one who will plan, right? Who will plan, who will, well, I guess plan is good, who will devise against the Lord. Now, you would say that, when did this happen? Right? When did this happen? Up to verse 11, it is talking about a certain destruction. So let me just put it down. Certain destruction of Assyria. And it talks about one person here who would come out and plot evil. Now, understand what evil is, Ra. Evil is something which is disagreeable in the eyes of the person who is looking at it. And so in this particular case, this person of Assyria is devising or planning evil against the Lord means that in the eyes of Jehovah, he considers it evil. That's what it means. He considers it evil. And he is a wicked counselor, one who gives worthless advice that will lead to the destruction and ruin of Assyria. And so I think when you look forward to passages like 2 Kings chapter 19, I think you can see that, verses 31 and 32. And the king there is Sennacherib, king of Assyria. And it shows that in that one night, 185,000 soldiers were killed. And that would be the picture that we are getting up to verse 11. That it is a prophecy against Nineveh, that is Assyria, and with a particular king who gives bad advice, and that would be Sennacherib. And Sennacherib does attack Judah and surrounds and put Jerusalem in a siege. And in that city, you would find Isaiah, you would find Hezekiah, and they are looking at certain death. And that would be this particular verse here that says, who plots or plans Ra against Jehovah. Why? Because Jerusalem is God's city. And when Sennacherib is about to attack and take Jerusalem, it is depicted in this verse as though Sennacherib is against God himself. And at that point in time, we have a good king, Hezekiah, and a good prophet, Isaiah. Together, they are in that city looking at Sennacherib and virtually certain death. And God resolves that. And so God looks at Sennacherib or the Assyrians eventually as the enemies. And that is important. So go back and read 2 Kings chapter 19. Let's carry on with verse 12. Now, one of the things that we find throughout the prophet books is that the prophet doesn't say, I said this. The prophet always says, thus says the Lord. It is God who is speaking through me, right? This is Jehovah. And he speaks through Nahum, and Nahum is writing this down and giving it to a not very popular fan called the Assyrians. Verse 12 says, and though they are saved, and likewise many, yet in this manner they will be cut down. When he passes through, though I have afflicted you, I will afflict you no more. For now I will break off his yoke from you and burst your bonds apart. Now, I think this will also refer to the southern kingdom, because Nahum is at a time of where the northern kingdom is no longer. That the northern kingdom has been taken over by the Assyrians. And it's speaking to Judah now, right? Speaking to Judah, the southern kingdom. It says, though they are safe. Now, in this case, the word safe is shalamim. Shalamim comes from the word shalom. Though they are safe, they think they are at peace, and that they have many people. They have, in terms of heads, they are many. But yet, in this manner, they will be cut down. The word cut down is to shear, like mowing off the hair of the sheep, right? To cut off the hair. They will be shaven, right? They will be shaven. So in this manner, they will be shaven. So God is speaking to Judah and says, though these people are many, they think they are safe. Who are these? The Assyrians. The Assyrians are marching through the land eventually, and you must think of it this way. At the height of the powerful Assyrians, nothing stops the Assyrians. And so they think they are safe, and they have many in terms of the army, right? And says this is the way that the Assyrians, will be cut down. They'll be shaven off the hair. When he passes through, he would be this wicked counselor. And here we know that it is Sennacherib at the end of the day. He will come through the land, and you will see in 2 Kings chapter 19 that Sennacherib is just sweeping through the north and then the south and all around Jerusalem. And finally, Jerusalem is the last place. He says, though I have afflicted you. God says, afflicted here, by the way, means I have humbled you, right? I have humiliated you. God is going to humiliate Judah. And yet I will humiliate you no more. And that would be, the word here is, there will be an end to being humiliated. What does that mean? It means that it will come upon in time where Judah would be something like emancipated. They would have no ability to defend themselves. They have no ability to do anything. They can't even lift up a finger to do anything for themselves. And if you read 2 Kings chapter 19, you would find that it is that situation. And that would be many years down the road. Probably another good 50 to 70 years. And then, for now, I will break off his yoke from you and burst your bonds apart. Now, verse 13 is a very interesting thing, is that God is saying that now God will. And so it is always God who's going to do it, because when they can do no more, it is at the end of, I guess you can say they're at the wit's end. God will be the one who will break into pieces. And then the other word, the word yoke here, would be something that is, it will be a burden on the neck. And so the Assyrians really becomes a yoke, a burden on their necks, Judah's necks. And in chapter 18 and 19, you would see exactly that. That when Shalmaneser came in chapter 18, you would find that Hezekiah had to give money, a tribute, to say, please stay away. And in chapter 19, we have a new king called Sennacherib, and he doesn't want money. He would just come in with a lawn mower or with a powerful vacuum cleaner, and he will suck everything up and destroy everything inside, and to literally shave off Judah. And so God says, that's the way that he is putting burden on you, because you're so afraid of him. God will mow off his hair or shave him off. And that is the picture of verse 12 and 13. That would be this prophecy that will hold true many, many years down the road. Now we will go to verse 14. In verse 14, the Lord has given a command concerning you. And we're talking about Nineveh, right? Which would be Assyria. And so this word here, command, a tzavot, and in this case, a charge. This is something that is going to happen. And God has given it. Has given a command means has made this against Nineveh. It says, your name shall perpetuate no longer. The word perpetuate literally means will not continue to, well, I guess, to bear fruit. Now, this idea is this, that they will be king after king after king, and we have read that, right? And all these kings of Assyria were very popular, very powerful. But it says that it will come upon in time that there will be an end to Assyria and there will be no more kings. And so this is what it means that your name shall be perpetuate no longer. And this is Shem. Your popularity, right? Your glory, your reputation. I think we can use this. Your glory, your reputation. And I think reputation is good because in an Oriental culture like ours, name is important, right? Make yourself a name. And so God says your name will no longer continue. So it will come a point in time when there will be no more. It will come to an end. Out of the house of your gods, and gods here is Elohim, and we'll come back to this. I will cut off the carved image and the molded image. I will dig your grave, for you are vile. So let's break this down first. So it has the house of your Elohim, your house, the house of your Elohim. This is equivalent to like the temple. House of God is the temple in Jerusalem, in Jerusalem. House of your Elohim would be the temples, the temple of their Elohim, the Assyrians. And so the Assyrians do not serve Jehovah. And so Jehovah says, I will cut off, and this is karat. What this means is he will put an end. He will put an end to the idol that's carved out, right? This would be Pesel. Pesel would be a graven, a carved image. And then you have what we call a molded image. And this would be metal poured into a mold. And then you have an image. And then I will dig. I guess the word dig is not really there. It's by implication, by inference. So the translator says dig, but the literal word is put. I will put. That's what it means. I will put. I will put or fix your grave. Now, this word grave means a tomb. So a place for death, right? Which signifies the end. And it says, for you are vile. What does vile means? Vile here is kalal. Kalal actually means, how should you put it? Kalal literally means you are light, you are small, you are insignificant. That is what this word actually means, right? You are contemptible. And so this is the general meaning here in this word. For you, the Assyrians, is vile. You are nobody. So I am going to put an end to all your gods. And so here it is to display that Jehovah is the only true and living God, or Elohim. And so it is really trying to tell the Assyrians that whatever gods or Elohim that they serve, they will not be able to stand up before the Elohim of Judah, the God of Nahum. We will end here and we will continue tomorrow, because verse 15 begins a new chapter, and we will see it tomorrow. And so with verse 14, you would see that Jehovah is predicting, or we call it prophesying, is giving them an account that Assyria will be no more. They cannot stand before God, and God will be the one that will do all these things. And as Judah themselves listen to this, they should take comfort that God is on their side. And so we can see the imagery in chapter 1 that God is an awesome God. When he bursts out in anger, you don't want to be there on the receiving end. And the receiving end are the Assyrians. And so all of these is talking about how the Assyrians are going to come to an end, and that Judah themselves, who knows God, will run to God for protection. And that would be the way that Nahum says that the Lord is Tov. He is good in the eyes of Judah. God is good because God will protect them. And that's why Tov is in the eyes of the beholder as well. And evil, Ra, is also in the eyes of the beholder, because it will be evil in the sight of the Assyrians. When God demolished them, bring them to bear, kill 185,000 of them on one night, they will know the power and the awesomeness of God. And with this, we come to the end of chapter 1.